your doubts, but we know that we'll thrive. The research shows clearly it's true. Being outside in nature makes us happy and smart. Please help us, we're counting on you. Please take us outside. Please take us outside. There's a lot to discover outside these walls, so please take us outside.
Well, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us and listening to that sweet little musical interlude by the one and only Remy Rodin, whose albums you can buy on the Outdoor Learning Store. Welcome to this book launch. Just 1 second, I just have to do some little technical things. Hold for just a moment. Excuse me. All good. So please, thank you so much for joining us. So I'm Jade from the Outdoor Learning Store, which was basically developed due to a lack of Canadian offerings. The purpose of the store is to provide easy access to excellent outdoor learning equipment and resources to schools and organisations across Canada now. Started in BC and now we're Canada-wide. This initiative is run as a social enterprise. So that allows a return for outdoor learning non-profit organisations, and all of our profits go back into supporting outdoor learning. And so joining me today is Executive Director of Take Me Outside, Colin Harris. As their organisation, they believe in a future where spending time outside learning, playing, exploring is a regular and significant part of every student's day. And that's their mission. They've been doing it since 2010. They're a non-profit as well, and they work collaboratively with other organisations like us, school boards and individuals to encourage those children and youth to spend more time outside through various projects and initiatives. So Take Me Outside and Canada's Outdoor Learning Store are looking forward to partnering more closely in the year ahead. You can see in my banner how much we love each other. We've got Take Me Outside Day, we've got Take Me Outside Week and the School Year Challenge. And as a little starting point, one of the grand prizes for registering this next coming year will be $1,000 gift card to the Outdoor Learning Store. We're also looking forward to partnering on twice monthly virtual workshops. These are going to be posted later in August on our workshop page. But to be sure you don't miss out on any good news, you can sign up to both Take Me Outside and the Outdoor Learning Store's e-lists or newsletter. And those chats, those links are going into the chats below. And if you can and are interested, you can follow us both on social media with Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and there'll be some handles going into the chat box there as well. So Take Me Outside. Take Me Outside running across, virtual backgrounds are really not very good at this, are they? Take Me Outside is Colin's story of spending 9 months running from St. John's, Newfoundland, thanks Duncan, to Victoria, BC. He visited over 80 schools along the way, engaging with 20,000 students about the importance of spending time outside learning, playing and exploring in the Canadian landscape. With one of the biggest and best backyards in the world, people across Canada are actually spending the vast majority of their time inside. But you know, the identity as Canadians, and I'm now a Canadian and I moved here for this purpose, is rooted in a relationship with the outdoors. So like the book is like funny and entertaining and recounts what it's like just to run across the world's second largest country. But it's also got a bit of a deeper message and imploring readers of all ages to reignite a connection with the natural world. So I'd love to chat with you, Colin, about this journey. Firstly, welcome. Hello.
Hello, Jade.
I want to talk about where it initiated, how it went, and how the sort of legacy is ongoing through your work with Take Me Outside. So I don't want to spoil the book really, but this is a journey you planned for a while. What inspired it, and then what made you finally sort of drop the hammer and make it a reality?
Okay, first I just want to say hi, there's lots of familiar. I like this version of Zoom because you can see sort of who's joining, and I see lots of familiar names, and some who I don't know. So that's great too. And yeah, thanks for the opportunity and having me tonight. It's great. Yeah, I think what I try to outline in the book. There were two sort of things that inspired me. One was uh, an Olympic torch relay that was making its way across the country in 1988, and sort of an experience running with the torchbearer and that planting a seed. And then the other was learning about Terry Fox's story and him inspiring me as well. So I think those are sort of on the personal side. Those are the two things that led me to wanting to run across the country. And then later on, it was my work within the field of outdoor and environmental education that sort of helped me run for a cause, I guess, and start taking outside as an organization.
Amazing, lots of inspiration. And you talk about in the book your upbringing being quite independent and wild. Did that sort of build resilience for facing the unknowns of this quite arduous journey that you took?
Yeah, I mean, I think parenting has just maybe changed slightly. And a lot of, it's a nuanced, complex conversation around sort of how generations shift. And I think some people would argue that it's not fair to compare how we grew up compared to how kids are growing up now. And it is a more nuanced conversation that has lots of different sides to it. So to try and answer your question, sure. I mean, I happen to grow up in a space where I'm guessing most people on this sort of call tonight would say that, after school, they went outside, their parents called them in for dinner. After dinner, they went back outside, until it was whatever curfew they had. Many would say until the street lamps came on, although that's getting a little bit cliche, it feels like, over the years, but it held true for a lot of us. So yeah, I think that time outside on our own, for me, on my own, definitely helped build some degree of resiliency. And I think, as the years have gone on and research sort of shows how much that independence and resiliency in that time outside contributes to our sense of character, and to who we become as adults.
Yeah, I think that's pretty amazing to connect those dots and to move forward. So you detail in the book you're running along Highway 1 in winter in very inclement weather. It's, what's your message for teachers or people that fear being outdoors during cold, wet times? How can we overcome this sort of discomfort in order to spend time out there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think part of it is just remembering that we are a species that has lived outside for, hundreds and thousands of years. And, there's that natural connection to the outdoors. And I think sometimes we can just simply forget that. And then for teachers, I mean, I remember listening to, I think it was on The Current one morning on CBC, and this was at the start of COVID, and they interviewed a few different educators across the country. And there was a teacher who ran sort of an outdoor program up in Nunavut. And, I think the takeaway there, and one of the other sort of educators who was based in Toronto said, if an educator in Nunavut can take their students outside during winter consistently every day, then anyone in Canada can take their students outside, even in inclement weather. So I think there's that old adage that we've probably all heard, there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. I think I'm slowly shifting that to, I heard a variation on that, which is there's no such thing as bad weather, just different kinds of good weather. And so I think trying to embrace whatever weather we're given, especially in this country.
Absolutely. And some of the resources that we've got in the store actually talk about how you can make the best of an incredibly stormy, blustery day. You know, you can use that as a study of physics or the way that things move through things if you're looking at Gillian Judson's work, or you know, how wet can I get? You know, how in touch with liquid can I be? So I'm with you there. So look, let's take it back a bit, because the beginning of the book talks about being Canadian and what that means. Obviously, I've got a strong Canadian accent, but I was born in the UK, but my soul was meant to be born here. And I currently reside in the traditional unceded territories of 4 First Nations, the Sinixt, the Silks, the Ktunaxa, and the Secwépemc. And obviously, we've had this horrific, devastating discovery of like 215 kids in Kamloops at a former residential school, and it being Indigenous History Month. And we're reminded of, like, how can we reconcile and move forward with reconciliation of modern outdoor learning that connects with our Indigenous ways of knowing, like you were talking about, for thousands of years people have been doing really quite well, you know, as part of Take Me Outside. Like, what's that message there? How do you connect those things?
I mean, it's a massive question, and I feel
Sorry, yeah, just a small
equally
question.
unqualified to answer it. But you know, I think part of it is just coming to. I've been reading a book. I just finished reading a book by Adam Grant. It's called Think Again, and it's really about sort of the psychology and brain science of rethinking and unlearning things. And I think, you know, as Canadians, we've got quite a few blind spots for a lot of Canadians, and I think it's trying to recognize some of those blind spots. And one of them is this history. I mean, the reality is, you know, and I think, again, for a lot of us on this call, we grew up in Canada with sort of a very stereotypical understanding of what it meant to be Canadian. And you know, it is hard to look back. I mean, where we're at now, it's hard to look back and sort of change anything, obviously. But I think it's important now, in what we're learning or unlearning, to be able to look back and try to make change moving forward. So, you know, I think it's a tough question to answer. I think with the tragedy that we've learned about in the past few weeks, I think a lot of it has to do with listening. And then, you know, I think in terms of taking action, we all try to do what we can. And again, I know that sounds sort of a little bit cliche, but for Take Me Outside, I mean, I think there can be a degree of reconciliation that is found with the amount, like, with trying to advocate for spending more time outside. The more we can connect students with this land, I think that is a step in the right direction of really understanding the indigeneity of the people who lived on this land for thousands of years. And I think it's also something that I try to point out in the book, that, you know, it's really the one thing that we all have in common, regardless of whether, you know, you have Indigenous roots, and you know, your family has been here for generations and generations, or whether you're a new Canadian and you've only been in this country for 3 months. You know, the one thing we have in common that we share as people who live in this country is this land we live on. And I think there's power to that moves away from some of the cliches about, you know, being a polite country, or being a country that makes itself, you know, that centers itself around hockey or donuts or whatever. You know, I think if you really look at the heart of what this country has in common, it's this land that we share and that we have the privilege of living on. And I think recognizing that is one step towards reconciliation.
I feel like the more time I spend out learning, because I grew up with an entirely different sort of flora and fauna, and then you start looking into things, and then you start seeing this sort of indigenous uses or for certain things, or what this food source was, and how that connected with travel, and how that connected people, how people moved across this landscape when it was far more inhospitable than we've made it now. I just think, like you say, when we spend more time outside, we just build those connections and seek that knowledge again, and hopefully hold on to it. So you ran across the country, and some people, which is just like, I can't run for a bus, to be quite frank, but some people aren't in the best of health, and you put your body through a lot, which you talk about in the book. What do you say to people who don't identify as fit, or, you know, being outdoorsy? Like, how does just being outside get physical well-being up?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, when I did the run across the country, the research at that time was about physical well-being. You know, there was this growing body of evidence that was pointing to kids spending more time in front of screens, that was leading to sort of a more sedentary lifestyle. And so the conversation really was about that physical activity and that physical health. And I think there's, you know, for sure, going outside is always going to help that physical health to a degree. But I think it's not that that physical health has sort of diminished in any way. I think it's just been um, sort of augmented by our mental health and our emotional health, and the power that those two aspects have on the amount of time that we spend outside. So, you know, it's that question around, like, I never considered myself a great runner. I mean, I ran cross country in junior high, and I think I quit after 2 weeks. And then I don't think I ran again until I was in university. And so, you know, it's, I never considered myself a great runner. This is just like a personal dream that I had. And yeah, I mean, I live in the heart of the Rockies here in the Bow Valley, Treaty 7 territory. There are a lot of Olympic athletes who live in this area, and that's just not who I identify with in terms of, you know, being hardcore, you know, and going out, whether it's cross country skiing or downhill skiing or trail running. I mean, if that sort of is what you enjoy, then that's amazing. But I think getting outside, it doesn't have to be sort of about, you know, meeting certain metrics on a watch or an app, about getting outside. I mean, I think Tame Outside really tries to advocate for just getting outside in the most general sense of the word possible. I think if you can sort of tear yourself away from your laptop, from your phone, from your TV, and just even go for a walk, it has massive benefits for your physical, your mental, your emotional health. That's a long-winded answer, but
No, but I think it's valid, right? Because yes, some people don't necessarily feel, but it's not about going on a massive hike, right? It's not about bagging a peak. You could just literally step outside the classroom and face away from the building, and whether that's urban or rural, and just breathe, you know, and be upright and have your spine long, and, or you know, it's just changing. It's just being about outside, right? You don't, yeah, have to be an Olympic athlete. And in the book, you know, you have your moments for sure where you definitely don't feel the most athletic, and I think it was a very humble book you wrote. Okay, so you actually completed your task. It took a little bit longer than you anticipated. How did going for a, you know, decent size run turn into you founding and creating a non-profit organization? How do those two things link up?
I mean, the honest answer is I'm still trying to figure it out. Um, you know, obviously incorporated Take Me Outside as a nonprofit because I wanted to go into schools and spread this message on the run across the country. and then it's just been sort of its own journey from there. So the run itself was a journey, and then I think trying to sort of make sense of this nonprofit post the run across the country has been its own journey. And so, I think the amazing thing is having met, I can look at several names on the screen here, and there's some amazing people that I've met over the years who have really had an impact on me personally. But then within this bigger field of sort of outdoor learning or outdoor and environmental education, and I think there's, yeah, I don't know how else to answer that question. I mean, I think Take Me Outside is just sort of, it's this entry point that really tries to invite teachers in to explore the possibility of taking their learning outside. And then there's all these other organizations across the country who are doing sort of that really deep and meaningful work, who are actually on the front lines of getting kids outside. And so we all contribute in different ways. And I guess Take Me Outside is, hopefully contributing to that sort of, just that conversation that teachers, administrators, parents, even students are having about the time that they spend outside.
It's pretty powerful message. And obviously just being outside is important, but it's nice, and what we're trying to do as an organization, and that is provide the resources and support to make that as easy as possible. And there are an enormous number of partnerships going on. There's funding opportunities. I feel like there's this real strong movement towards, and you've been instrumental in that happening, of moving towards this outdoor learning, not just as like a little side, like not as a break from learning or a little side hit, but as an integral part of how we should structure our education system. So I feel like there's results happening and there's beautiful things. How many people participated in the last Take Me Outside Day or challenge? Is there some hands waving? Wave your hand if you did it. Yeah, Laurie.
Keep track of numbers, but our best guess was just over 225,000 kids across the country. Yeah.
That's a round of applause. I like that a lot. That's beautiful. I'm a bit of I guess a hippie is the word. I'm not sure if it is. But was there any part of like the journey? Because I was thinking about the changing of the seasons and migrations, and like, I don't know, was there any part of this that felt really spiritual? Is that a part of what being outside is, or is it purely sort of, it's good for the physical and mental well-being? Like, did it deepen your connection to the earth when you ran across a fair portion of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was maybe more so in retrospect. I mean, it's hard to feel that spiritual connection when semis are whizzing past you at 120 kilometers an hour.
Terrifying.
But in retrospect, yeah, for sure. Even along the Trans-Canada, there's beautiful stretches. And I think, yeah, I've always, and it's not just running. I think whether it's been running or even just going for a walk, I mean, this is maybe embarrassing to admit, but ever since I was in university, what I enjoyed most was just going outside at night when everyone else was in their homes, and just talking to myself out loud. And I've actually done that for the last 25 years and maybe that, I don't know if there's a spiritual connection there that you can see, but in my mind there is, of just that time outside. Your head is a little bit cleared, and it's a good way to clear the head. But for me, for sure, there's a deep mystery about sort of this planet, about this universe. And I think the more time sort of we spend outside, the more, I think that spiritual sense for me is about trying to become a better human being. And I hold to the idea firmly that the more time we spend outside, just generally, I know there's sort of, you can debate and argue about what it means to connect with nature. And I think it's an important conversation to have. But I think just sort of framing it as any time that we spend outside, I think helps us become better human beings. And I think there's a strong spiritual aspect to that that is really beneficial and worthwhile.
Couldn't agree more. Even as an outdoor environmental educator and somebody who is very passionate about nature and being outdoors, I am still desperately aware of my own screen addiction. And the way that the book finishes was one of those things where you sort of like close it and feel like someone's slightly punched you in the stomach, in a very like just thought-provoking way, not in a sort of upsetting way. But it was, you know, what are the Take Me Outside initiatives for the coming year? What are you excited about for the future? How can people like myself who love it but are still sucked back inside, how, you know, what's coming up that we can look forward to being outside?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to find ways to just still grow capacity as an organization. But I think, again, we're trying to find ways to really invite teachers in to this conversation. So, you know, my guess, if I was a betting person, I would say that, you know, a lot of people on this call have, they're already part of the choir. They have drunk the Kool-Aid, and, you know, they practice most of what we're talking about. And so I think, you know, one of the goals is to really sort of build on what has happened during the year of COVID. There's been, you know, a big sort of push around outdoor learning. And I think Take Me Outside, along with Outdoor Learning Store and other partner organizations, you know, the real goal is how do we continue this momentum that's grown over the past year. And so for Take Me Outside, I think that's trying to find ways to, again, invite teachers in for initiatives like Take Me Outside Day, for the Learning Challenge. I think you know, one conversation that we're having internally, and I wish we had more time to talk about this, but it's conversations that we're starting to have, is that, you know, I think offering teachers a lot of resources is a great thing. And that will help them take their learning outside for sure. But there's more to that. I think I draw on his writing quite a bit, but there's an American educator, Parker Palmer. He wrote a book called The Courage to Teach. And one of the standout lines for me is, you teach who you are. And so you can give teachers all the resources they want, but if they're not living sort of what they're teaching, those resources can get shelved pretty quick. So I think one way where Take Me Outside really wants to engage with teachers is focusing on their own personal journey as educators and that connection that they themselves have with the outdoors. And if that can get strengthened in some way, then there's hope that those resources that we provide afterwards or during will have a more sustained sort of future with that educator, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Inspire the teacher. And I can tell you, if you read this book, even if you're a nerdy outdoor person like me, you will be inspired. I know you're going to blush and not enjoy the praise, but it was, I delved in and I just didn't put the book down until I was finished, because I was deeply attached to your journey, both physical and, you know, the descriptions of the different landscapes across Canada, just magic, realistically. And I really do think that when you talk about the way that the students inspired you, their feedback being what drove you on through the difficult times, and how important their feelings are and their actual needs, it's really important. We're coming to the end of our 30 minutes. In fact, I'm a minute over. And I just want to say thank you so much for, you know, bearing your soul a bit and sharing, well, firstly, taking the effort to write this book for us to read, and joining us to answer my really tricky questions. in order to close, we'll do a quick soft close. And then if anyone wants to stick around and do some questions that we haven't answered or is interested, please, we're going to stay around a little bit, but aware that everyone spends a lot of time on screens. So we're going to keep it short and sweet. From the Outdoor Learning Store, I would like to provide the first person that can type, get your fingers ready. The first person that can type into the chat box 3 living things or things from nature. One begins with T, one begins with M, one begins with O. 3 living things. TMO. Go. Tree, moss, owl. I think Gillian, you got it. Gillian Judson is the winner. $50 to you, my lady. That was very quick. I really like Brenda's trees, mountains, oceans, though. And toad, moth, owl. Okay, I could read them all. I shouldn't do that. Congratulations. I have your email. I will send you your $50 gift card. Well done. And would Take Me Outside, I think you got a couple of gifties to share with the world.
I do, but Jillian said she donates her prize to the person after her. So.
Oh, I missed it. Okay, so in that case, one moment. Brenda Melnichuk. I hope I said that right. Hello, Brenda. I see you waving. Hello. Please pop you can direct message me in the chat box, your email, and we will send you a virtual gift card. Congratulations. Good job. Sorry, Fahim. I'll be quiet again.
Oh, thanks, Jade. I wish I had some fun activity to do to give you guys a prize from Take Me Outside, but we have 2 prizes to give away. One of them is Colin's book. So we, of course, encourage you to purchase it if you can, because all the proceeds go back to Take Me Outside, and it's a great book. We're giving one out though, and the winner for that is Erica Momir. Congratulations.
Oh, well done.
And we do have one more prize to give away as well. If you have checked out our outdoor journals, they're weatherproof journals that you can, use outside in all kinds of weather. And we're giving one of those out to one lucky winner, who's Corey DeMano.
Corey DeMano.
Congrats to the winners. And yeah, thanks, Jade.
Thank you. So as you'll see in the chat, Duncan's been posting that link where you can buy it. It's officially available on the website, and it is available in other places. We're not going to say their name, but if you buy it from the Outdoor Learning Store, those profits go back into outdoor learning rather than some gentleman's rather large pocket. So please, feel free to join our party and drink the Outdoor Learning Kool-Aid and share with us. And there's a 10% discount. You can use that code at checkout. It's in the chat a couple of times there. Yes, that's pretty much it. If you have to fly, please fly. I do have a couple of extra questions if anyone's interested in hanging out, or if anyone's got any questions that I didn't ask that you would like to ask Colin, please feel free to type them in the chat. And we can hang out. People are saying thanks, Colin.
I saw one question. The book by Parker Palmer is called The Courage to Teach. He has several books, but the one that really focuses in on educators and the education system is called The Courage to Teach.
Courage to Teach. I like that. And if you're looking for inspiration about how to teach outside in inclement weather, or to study all different types of weather, you can read Gillian Judson's Engaging in Imagination Ecological Education. I think I got the words the right way around. It's full of absolute gems of how to make that work. I mean, there's lots of other ones, but that's a strong favorite. Colin, I wanted to ask you one last thing because I didn't get there, but some of your historical work has included such accolades as forgetting to take a child with you when you were a camp leader and forgetting to pack the shelters. How did that kind of tough sort of setbacks in your life? Did you imagine that the journey running would have as many setbacks as it did? Or were you like, oh, well, this is life, it's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, there's no, just to clarify, because I think some of your euphemisms, so I didn't, I kind of forgot the camper, but I wasn't the kids counselor, so
Okay, it's not
I
your
always
fault.
gave that out. And the shelter, yes, I did. On my first canoe trip for this camp, I forgot the tents. So it was a double whammy. But yeah, I mean, I think we all learn from our mistakes. I mean, it's so, we say that so often, and that we live in a culture where those mistakes are so scrutinized, and you see them on a daily basis with adults, especially. So I wish we could, we preach this idea of learning from mistakes to the kids that we teach, and yet we fail to practice them as adults on a consistent basis. For the run, yeah, there was no sort of guidebook on running across the country. I mean, we faced numerous obstacles, and you sort of problem solve on a daily basis. So yeah, it's I feel like, post running across the country, it's provided me perspective on, just being able to tackle things in life, and having sort of the knowledge that, well, yeah, sometimes the knowledge, although some people on this call would know that I get just as easily frustrated with things in life as anyone else. But I think you try to relate it back. I try to relate it back to some of the challenges that I faced running across the country, and the knowledge that you can sort of overcome some of those obstacles.
Bit of perspective, perhaps, that it's all going to be fine.
For sure.
Ian asks, any wildlife sightings or encounters of note on the Cross Canada Run? Did you get attacked by any animals at any point?
No,
I don't know
thankfully.
if that's why I haven't asked that.
No, lots of, again, I think there was always, running through sort of the Rockies, there was the fear of bears at that point, but no, I think the closest wildlife encounter I had was in Saskatchewan, where a hawk sort of
Oh,
dive bombed at me, and I had to drop to my knees on the Trans-Canada Highway. But other than that, no. There was, what I didn't put in the book, on my fourth day, I think on my fourth day of running in Newfoundland, hunting is obviously allowed, but I didn't realize, and they must have been further back, but anyway, this is a little bit graphic, but the head of a moose was in the ditch on the Trans-Canada Highway.
hmm.
So they had taken the body and left the head. So that was a little bit shocking.
Off-putting, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, nothing like seeing giant dead animal head to inspire you to run a bit faster past that spot, perhaps.
Yeah.
You do talk a bit in the book, though, about the different landscapes and the different like little snippets of history. So I found it a really sort of educational book as well. As you were running through, I've little tidbits of information. So it was really, really interesting to learn things about that too.
Don't test me on any of those.
Okay. Well, I've got my notes. I could just go to a couple pages. No, I really enjoyed reading it, and I felt a strong affinity for what you did. Because obviously you used a support vehicle as part of it, but what do you think was different about traversing it on foot, maybe, rather than even on bicycle or with a vehicle itself? Do you feel like that sort of connected you to your humanity, to the use of you as a person?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think whenever you slow down and you see things at a different pace, you have that ability to see things in a different perspective. So, there's lots of people who have biked across the country, and I think that provides a different perspective. And yeah, I mean, admittedly, running you know, I think for the first few weeks, you're focused on the traffic, and it's hard to focus on anything else. You're trying to make eye contact with every single driver.
So you don't get run over.
So you don't get run over, but yeah, I mean, once I got used to that, you know, you sort of space out as you would on a normal run, and yeah, I think I don't know, I've just, as an introvert, I enjoy time in my own head, sometimes to my detriment, but I think, you know, I think that being outside at a slower pace, allows you to sort of just take things at a different speed than you would otherwise. Again, I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, it absolutely does. I like that. It's about slowing down, right? If you're moving under your own steam, you actually, whether you're zoning out a bit or whatever, you're in this very moment. You know, you're not living in the past or the future. You're right there, even if right there is just attempting to avoid being squished by a truck. You know, it is what it is. It's pretty interesting. Heidi's raised her hand. Do you want to unmute? And
Hi, thank you. First Zoom hand raise. I've never tried that before, but since Colin's tagging on a little bit longer, I just wanted to know in the book some of the things that kind of, when I reflect back, it's been, I don't know, maybe a month or two since I've read it, but the children's sentiments in the different schools that you spoke with, I'm just wondering if you've heard back from any of these students, or what kind of feedback is sitting with them longer term, if that opportunity has come up.
yeah, it's a good question. Heidi, I don't know when you joined the call, but I'll admit to everyone, I feel really bad because I talked about living in the Bow Valley and these hardcore Olympic athletes, and Heidi happens to be one of them. So now I feel bad about.
everybody's got their place, don't they? I've been to Canmore and Banff and just been like, I'm fit, and then you get there and you're like, oh, I am not fit at all. Okay, but good for you.
I know Heidi would agree with me that, you know, those I know because of the work she does that sort of that connection with nature is more important than some of the hardcore athlete stuff.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, it's tough. I probably haven't heard from those students who I encountered on the run directly. And who knows, maybe this book will open some doors with students remembering my visits. It's more so the teachers, I think, that have, you know, that I've made those connections with and sort of held on to some of those friendships and relationships that I've made with teachers. And so that's been really sort of meaningful over the years to stay in touch with some of those educators. But yeah, there's been, you know, I think every now and again, I remember sort of, this wasn't in the context of running across the country, but more so when I worked for Outward Bound and doing a 3-week canoe trip, and, you know, a decade later, hearing from students who were on that trip. So it's, yeah, I think it's, you know, again, I don't want to diminish what I did, but the reality is that I only got sort of half an hour to an hour in every school, and this was usually talking to a gymnasium full of students. And so, you know, the impact that you have in that short time really doesn't compare to the teachers who are doing that amazing day in, day out work with those students, and the meaningful impact that they have. So, you know, sure, the hope was to try and have that conversation with students, but I think almost the hidden agenda was to try and have an impact on the teachers who worked with them every day.
Mm-hmm. Really cool. Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
I'm not the interviewer. I could sit here all night. I think that's really interesting that you call it the secret agenda, but of course, like if you're sitting there, you know, listening to someone who's just literally run up to the school, like that's got a really powerful message in and of itself. So I don't doubt that there's been, yeah, kind of a following of educators that have been ignited by this. So thank you.
And there might be that kid, I bet there's that kid who has to walk home and sometimes is sort of like, oh, I wish I could get picked up, and then might have just like put a little jog on, you know, like they're not going to write you a letter, but that kid might have just like put a little run in to get home, and then it might have sparked something, or there'd just be this moment of like connection there. So I don't doubt that for a second.
I have
Is
to
anyone
share
else?
that I know Erica's on the line, and she and I were in Invermere when Colin came across Canada, and that was my first introduction to Seabean. And so, Colin, like, thanks for engaging me in this work. And then, yeah, like it's so. I think there's lots of sparks like that you created on the run that you'll never know about.
Exactly, they're subtle, but they start a reaction, right? And then one thing
Totally.
leads to the next.
Totally.
So yes, again, very modest, but I did, yeah, you know, I know you a bit, but I read the book and I have had a few moments where I've been out with my dog walking, and I might normally check my emails or something when he's hanging out for a bit, and I just didn't. I was just very, you know, I was like, I'm just actually going to be here, be outside. So no, bit of inspiration happening for sure. With
And I think that's-
everyone.
You know, I'm gonna take this opportunity. I mean, I think, you know, and we'll continue having this conversation, you know, with partner organizations. I think sometimes I think the work we're doing is really important with outdoor and environmental education and that broader umbrella of outdoor learning. But I think we have a responsibility to be role models as well when it comes to that screen time. And I think for sure there's been advantages over the past year with Zoom, and to a degree, you know, seeing the opportunities with virtual learning. And it's not to pit one against the other. Take Me Outside has tried really hard to sort of find that balance. But when you just sort of look at the statistics and the data around screen time, there's a lot of work to do in that area. And I think outdoor learning is sort of, it's an answer to some of that screen time in the classroom. But I think there's still some solid work that needs to be done around, you know, and all you need to do is watch a documentary like The Social Dilemma, or
Watch Black Mirror or something like that. Technology.
exactly. I mean, there's, I think within the education system, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done around sort of, you know, quite literally our addiction to phones.
The problem is though, so much of the next generation, like we're living in this incredibly technological era, and the speed at which that technology is developing is outrageous. But for me, for example, like you said, it's not pitting against the other. There's like the sliding scales, but like part of the Take Me Outside, there's a challenge right at the moment where by September, if you submit a video of your students learning outside. So I got in my teaching guys, I mean, you're going to see it. I don't know if it's like breaking the excitement, but they were sat on a log after we'd spent all day outside on a field trip learning about ecosystems. And I'd got them to do all these sketches. And then I just asked them to hold up the sketch and to say one word about what being outside or what nature means to them. And we went along, we did 3 takes because a couple of them were very odd and involved a lot of giggling. But even that is like sort of cross-curricular as well, right? They're talking about expressing themselves, they're sharing their connection with nature. A lot of the time kids are getting to a point where they, you know, how was your day? Fine. You know, if they can communicate what they love about nature, maybe they can communicate what they need in the other aspects of their life for their social and emotional well-being. So I'm going to share that with you. So I do feel like, yeah, like you say, like there's a little place for technology. It's just, you know, making sure they're outside with it, you know, using iPads, which most schools have now, to take photos of nature, finding patterns, whether it's maths or, you know, whether it's recording themselves outside talking. There's drama, there's, you know, confidence building there. I'm trying to find that balance between technology and outdoors. And I feel like the challenges that Take Me Outside are providing and some of the resources that you share really help actually direct that in a positive way.
Yeah, I think that balance is important. And I think, I just wonder sometimes, like what, you know, technology has sort of made that progression, and a lot of that progress has come unchallenged. And sometimes I wonder, you know, could outdoor learning have the same trajectory that getting laptops one-on-one into the school system? I mean, it's the research, I'll say this, the research better supports experiential outdoor learning in terms of marks in school, character traits, you name it, for benefits. And there isn't that research that speaks to as many benefits to, you know, a
If
student.
every kid has a laptop.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know, it's funny, isn't it? So yeah, changing that, but you know, like you say, the partnerships, that's where you get up to the next level. Laurie shared something in the chat though. She said the Sir James Whitney School for the Deaf students were very active with eBird this year. It's an app that you use to identify birds, that 5-year-olds were able to use the online bird guides. So that's pretty special, right? That technology can really help, whether, if anyone has a disability or differing abilities, there's all kinds of room for it. Laurie, do you want to share? Go ahead.
Hi, Colin. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I just, I'm a teacher at Sir James Whitney School for the Deaf, and I have a couple of colleagues that came on with me today. And I think your work, we've been doing Take Me Outside, I think, since you've started at our school. We were early adopters. And I think one of the important aspects of what you're doing is that we're seeing a shift in outdoor education, where we are moving from that traditional or this mindset of the hardcore, right? So outdoor education to me, before being an adult, always meant the out country, backcountry camping, the whitewater kayaking. My son went through all of his high school programs at Gould Lake, like that was outdoor education in my schema. And I think for a lot of educators now, that's still what outdoor ed means. And what you're doing is it's essentially democratizing outdoor ed is what it's doing. So it's making it accessible for all teachers who are not necessarily going to be that athletic outdoor. There's still a place for that and an emphasis, and it's really, really important. Bushcraft and all those things are still really important, but it's also important to just allow kids that breathing space outdoors. And if it just means for some teachers, as they're getting comfortable with the idea that they take their kids and they can read through their independent reading under a tree, that's a good start. And I've worked with colleagues now that they're watching their own evolution of embracing going outside in all weather. Whereas before, if it even drizzled, it was indoor recess. Picking up salamanders or saving the worms from the pavement, all the icky things. Watching some of my colleagues make these huge shifts in their own thinking and practice, and then getting us out of our comfort zone. When we're not comfortable, that's when we're learning, as long as we're safe. If we're not comfortable, that's the nice zone to be in. And I think that's where your work really is instrumental for a lot of us. So I wanted to thank you for that. And also for non-traditional students being at a school for the deaf, we don't have resources. There are no resources. The ASL resources for deaf students almost don't exist in terms of outdoor education. So having programs like yours forces teachers like me to create and recreate new resources for our students. So I want to thank you for that too. And if just a plug for our school, if you ever want to do any collaboration with a deaf school, I'm your gal, and feel free to contact me. If you're ever in Belleville, Ontario, and you want a tour of a deaf school, we'll blow your mind. It's an amazing school to be at, a fantastic campus. So thank you again, just from me to you.
Awesome. Thanks,
Mm.
Laurie. That's great. It's yeah, first nice to meet you. And if there's an opportunity to come to Ontario, hopefully soon, that would be, yeah, that would be pretty incredible to see the school. And yeah, I just a quick response. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, I think there's this notion that outdoor and environmental education is a specialized field. And I think we're trying to deconstruct that a little bit. And I think a lot of it goes back to, you know, even within this field of outdoor and environmental education, we also have blind spots. And so I think we need to rethink and unlearn outdoor and environmental education. And, you know, I know that's the work that we're doing with our partners. That's what we're trying to do. And part of that is, you know, language is important. So reframing it to outdoor learning. A couple of weeks ago, I got challenged even on outdoor learning, and can it be simplified even more to just learning outside? And some of these are, it feels like semantics, but it's, again, we know that language is important. And I think that inclusivity piece, you know, trying to find the right way to make a teacher feel welcome into some of this is crucial. So yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, at the Outdoor Learning Store in Seabean, we've been everything we're looking for at the moment, and we have committees about this is about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you've kind of sparked something there. My dad was adopted by a deaf family, and he was one of 6 kids. None of the kids were deaf. It was like a genetic, like, it's unreal, but both parents were deaf. And so they signed everything to their parents. And so much of like my dad's upbringing, like he signs fluently, but in British Sign Language. And I could do my basics of my name and say hello and swear actually and sign, just because you have to. You're like, you know, you have to do what you do. You're clicking something in my mind about how we could make resources inclusive, whether is that a scavenger hunt that involves texture, or is connected to us learning or teaching other educators and teachers about what signs there are for things in nature, because deaf people are everywhere, right? It's not just in. So yeah, that's sparking something. I'm going to definitely reach out. Let's talk. Let's think about that in the future. And most of my sign, Duncan's just saying, should I edit that out? Most of it was hidden, actually. The bit that made it a swear word was hidden, so that's okay. And last question, because we've all got to make dinner and do that kind of stuff. It was PG. Is when are you going to run back from west to east? Stop being so lazy and run from west to east. I added the lazy bit, and get a new perspective on the land from the other side.
Yeah,
Got any plans?
if that was Duncan writing that question, if I'm going to do that, he has to join me. So,
Oh, I'll come for like a short bit, or I'll drive the support vehicle if you want.
no,
Classic evening, quiet evenings will not be a thing.
I'll join you from the Trans-Canada Connector. It's now going through Kootenay Park in the fall. So I'll join you from Invermere to Banff for sure.
I actually, as well, you talk a little bit in the book about, sorry, I'm supposed to be finishing, but when you get past Revelstoke, and I had to drive it to take my dog to the vet, and I was on it, and I was just thinking I would be it's beautiful, but all through Eagle Pass, but I would be absolutely terrified in those windy little sections with rock faces that frost freeze thaw and shatter every year, and just are like horrific for rockfall, and you're just like trundling along. Maximum respect. Thanks for your email, Laurie. Kate says I'll be shifting next year in my class. We'll have a blind student. We'll learn together. I'm looking forward to learning about touch sense learning. Yes. And partnership, mobility. I worked as a seeing skier for visually impaired people over several seasons, and it is amazing how much other perception there is other than just especially if one is not working in some way. The other ones are like ramping up and getting all excitable and being able to sort of compensate. So anyway, I would say thank you again, Colin. It's been more of a conversation, which is really lovely. And I'm really grateful for other people stepping in to share their experiences and to connect, because gosh, don't we just crave that? You know, this is not just a boring webinar where, you know, you go through chapters of the book and what it all means. It's like, I don't know, that's been really special for me to actually connect with some humans and make some connections for the future. Got any last words?
Yeah, I think just want to thank you and Duncan for setting this up. And I think, you know, for that relationship that's grown over the past couple of years, especially, it means a lot. And I think, you know, super happy to Take Me Outside still growing, but you know, Farheen has been with Take Me Outside now for a couple months, and really thankful to have her be part of the team. And yeah, I think again, just like whether it's Sane or Ian or, you know, Heidi, Corey, people on this call who have, you know, that I've met, that I feel like I've connected with in different ways. It's yeah, I think, you know, we all want to feel that sense of community in some sort of way. I think it's obviously an inherent part of being a human being. And I think this is like it's a pretty cool community to be part of.
Here, very proud. And I just see amazing people doing amazing things all the time. But your initiatives that you do with Take Me Outside, and we hope to inspire with the outdoor learning store, like workshops we've been running and things, is to connect and inspire people with each other, not just in a sort of top-down manner. And I feel like that's genuinely what you do, and people are uplifted and feel motivated and inspired. So it's good stuff. This is like it's a feel-good situation. I leave these things with a sense of well-being, although I did feel sad at the end of your books. I was like, oh gosh, my phone, get rid of it, burn it on a pile, but that's not good for the environment either. So what you gonna do? I've got your emails, Laurie. I'm going to email you. Thanks, everyone. Duncan really does all the work. I just talk more. Thanks so much. And Farheen, for all the work you do behind the scenes too. And I shall say good night. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Ask your teachers to take you outside.